See what we have in here. Dig around.
If there was a drum roll, I would do it, but we don't.
Wow. Fancy. 10-year anniversary. That's beautiful. Yeah, I think from my perspective, honestly, the thing that sticks out to the most to me is the people and the relationships, and the fact that it literally started with, informally 6 to 7 people in a random classroom at Sarah High School over here in Tirisana and Murphy Canyon. Just having a conversation about like, okay, we're providing services in this neighborhood, you're providing services in this neighborhood. It was Fleet and Family, the Armed Services Y, SAY, and the Healthy Start Military Family Resource Center, which I was representing. The Navy Marine School liaisons, Focus, and a couple others, Courage to Call, kind of saying, okay, what is it that you do? Here's what we do. How can we work more effectively together? So I think it was those kind of early informal meetings, and maybe a happy hour here and there along the way of just really having a fun time, getting to know people who are kind of doing the work that we were doing, and kind of just starting a conversation. And it evolved from this kind of informal network of folks into something that has kind of bridged across time. I mean, it is kind of mind-blowing to me that we're here celebrating a decade. Yeah, it's crazy to think about. That really doesn't, have anything to do with me. It has a legacy, the legacy of the mission, and those folks who really came together at that point in time to kind of say, hey, what do military families and their children need here in San Diego? And ultimately, how can we as a sector be better kind of organized and coordinated to provide that support? I think early on around that time, the collaborative was involved in supporting some research that Promises to Kids were doing, kind of a local community assessment for military children and families. And that kind of really became a launching pad as well to say, okay, we have kind of been talking about these things, but really how do we come together, kind of galvanize some action around some of these issues that military families are facing? A key takeaway from that was, unlike, rural county USA, where a military family may be stationed, there's no services and families don't know where to go. I think in San Diego, it's kind of the opposite debilitating effect of there's too many services. Where do I go? Where do I start? I don't know. And if we as service providers don't know what each other are doing, how much more far removed are families themselves? So there was iterations of the Military Family Collaborative that started back in the 90s. I mean, I originally found paperwork in my desk, literally within my first week of like, okay, the Navy and the school district, and say San Diego came together back in the day. There was a network that was started. Clearly it's been dormant for a while. I think the Armed Services Y at the time had some funding to kind of do a really cool annual conference. But with these monthly convenings that we were starting, it was really kind of exciting to see like, oh no, there's some momentum here. The past isn't enough. Once a year isn't enough. How do we come together monthly to kind of really dig in, get to know each other, and get to know what we can do more effectively together to really be there for San Diego's military children and families. So, me personally, I really saw my role as kind of taking a step back and being more of a kind of a facilitating a process. I think the other beauty of the Military Family Collaborative is Many of the folks who participate are wearing kind of multiple hats, bringing forward multiple identities of they themselves were children who grew up in military families. Their parents are, veterans. A lot of spouses who are involved, and prior service members as well. So I think there's a lot of beauty and authenticity in that the San Diego Military Family Collaborative is not a kind of naive group of helpers who are there to do good work for those people over there that need our help. But it really is kind of authentic people with that firsthand life experience saying, I'm there, I've lived it, I'm actively living it, and I now have a kind of a role or a place or a way to kind of be involved and affect the kind of big picture and really look at the kind of the systems and the infrastructure that is in San Diego, and kind of really, dig into that mission that the Military Family Collaborative has put out there, really about convening holistic support for active duty veterans and their families. Yeah, I think I'm going to go back to what I was saying before about just the power of relationships, and that it really is kind of relationships that activate the resources that are out there. I think the collaborative kind of helps put that kind of process and some of that structure in place, but it's a lot easier to kind of pick up the phone and say, hey, here's a need that I have, whether it's for myself personally or a family that I'm working with. And I feel like it's a very kind of destigmatizing environment where, one of the most, courageous things, bravest things that someone can do is to simply say, hey, I need help. And I know it was, always kind of front of mind for the Military Family Collaborative leadership to think about, like, how do we become part of that kind of interwoven web that can connect families? That the reality is I think this is just Joe speaking. It's naive to think that, there's all this kind of duplication out there in the world. That the reality is the need is 1,000 times greater than the resources that exist, and all of us programs and providers have at our fingertips to support, and the capacity that is truly needed to solve some of the social problems of our day. But it's really about coordination. And so to Danny's point, that a collective impact type of model is really key to kind of coordinate those services. So if any duplication exists, it's because we're not, as providers, not a part of a community. So I think the biggest value of the Military Family Collaborative is being a part of a like-minded, authentic community of folks who are really trying to bring change and kind of provide a space where people can get connected, find resources and support where they don't even really notice that kind of that warm handoff is happening. There's not one organization that does everything, and there never will be. And so it really, the future of society really requires wise collaborative leaders to kind of come together and think, understand, connect, and kind of be a part of that collaborative process building, so that we truly can have holistic services and support for families and kind of help families kind of quickly pivot when, as all of us, have hit that moment in our lives where, hard times and we need something. We've all been there. So how do we do that in a, meaningful, authentic way?